All right, everyone, thank you for joining us and welcome to our first LinkedIn Live event from Data Meaning, part of the Data in the Wild series. Today we have all of the Data Meaning aces available to talk today and ask questions. We've got a handful of questions that we've collected over the last couple weeks, and we just want to make sure that you all get introduced to the Alteryx aces that work here at Data Meaning. So we're going to go around and get started. And if you guys have any fun questions that you would like to ask us about becoming an ACE or our ACE journey, we can include those as part of the questions. This is also part of a three-part series that we're kicking things off with a bang for the 4th of July weekend here. And we can ask some of those either during today's session, tomorrow's, or Friday's. So let's start with Dallas. How did you give us a little bit about how you became an ACE, and then also your first time interacting with Alteryx Server? What was that like?
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, I'm happy to be here, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, Andrew, I can definitely talk about that. Well, I think the ACE status was related to my participation in the community, and not just only the community that we know, the Alteryx community, the website, but also in the Brazilian community around here. Basically spreading the word around Alteryx. Alteryx has been growing here in the last few years, but it's I've always found it interesting to tell more about Alteryx with the folks here. So I think that contributed a little bit to have to be able to join the ACE team. And related to Alteryx Server, I guess first time was 2017 or 18. I don't quite remember specifically, but well, I actually dealt with Alteryx Server as an end user first, and then well, after I joined Data Meaning, I would guess I did more admin work, configuring, helping clients, setting up the server. And yeah, at first I thought the platform was a little bit, different from designer, especially in terms of architecture and stuff. I used to work with the scheduler, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically, yeah, the legacy version of the server. I would say a lot of clients still use the scheduler to just schedule jobs locally. But then when I got to server, I thought, wow, what a new world of contributing, collaborating, sharing, and all of these things related to also data governance that fall into server. So
It's
yeah.
kind of like mind blown whenever you start interacting with server, right? Because there's so much potential that exists there. And then also I feel like it's a lot of users' first exposure, especially if you're leading it in your company to managing a server environment and getting more technical in that regards, more IT centric, right? Did you kind of encounter some of those same things when you first got started?
Yeah, definitely, because it felt like I think there's also this, let's say, this barrier, right? When you think of a server platform, you think about a lot of administration aspects of a machine itself, right? Not just using the application, but also using knowing how to integrate that with Windows and the environment, right? So that is definitely something that that I think impacted at me at first, but I did have some IT background in the past, so I think my transition was smooth in this I would say in this sense. But yeah, It's nice to learn and compare with other platforms as well and see how server is powerful.
Awesome. And Fernando, you're our youngest ace here. I mean, in terms of ace years, not necessarily. I actually don't know how old all of us are. So tell us about your first time with Alteryx and interacting with the server. What was that like?
Okay, so I'm an Alteryx ace for 1 year now, working with Alteryx for I think 5 to 6 years with designer, server, and so on. And for me, being completely honest, I was I'm a pre-sales and commercial guy, so I was looking into all the tools, trying to learn everything that it's there for selling Alteryx, and I was looking for a challenge. I'm a very competitive guy, and after 3 to 4 years, I was thinking, what else can I do to improve what my Alteryx status is.
Nice.
So that's that's how I learn about Alteryx says, and I learn how can I become one. And the one of the ways was for answering question in the community, and something that I was looking for was to be in the leaderboard, to be in the top 10 question answer, and that's something that I I was able to do. Uh, and that's why I became an ace, to improve my status. And related to server, I think my first contact was 3 years ago, mainly to understand everything that is going on there. But that's my practical answer.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, and it's interesting, I mean, exploring even the pre-sale side of things because you get to see a lot of how different people deploy the servers, kind of like Dallas was talking about, right? And as we talk about different deployments, obviously my favorite is like built-in authentication because like the headaches are just gone right away. You don't have to deal with any of the authentication aspects.
Sure.
But we deal with a lot of different environments here. And I think one of the experts that we actually have on that panel right now is Carlos Teixeira. Carlos, do you want to give a little bit about your first experience with Alteryx and kind of interacting with Alteryx server?
Yeah, nice to be here, as mentioned by Thales, and it's a pleasure to stay here. So I have been working with the Alteryx Designer and Alteryx Server since 2015 as Thales. We started together working with the Alteryx Designer. And I'm Alteryx AC. I'm nominated the Alteryx AC last year, and I didn't expect the invitation to be one async at the end of last year. It was a hug surprise for me in this case, and I was working in the community, but I didn't intend for that to happen, and I was hoping for this year, but it was a welcome surprise. I like to help it in the Brazilian community, Spanish and French community, and uh, I was a top contributor on the three communities some months ago,
Hold
and
on,
it's
let's stop for a second and just acknowledge that. Three
yeah,
communities?
three communities.
Three. That's
Yes,
insane.
Brazilian, Spanish, and French community. I
Wonderful.
like to help all the peoples around the world.
Awesome.
I don't talk any words in this any French language, but I like to use the some translator tools, and the intent is helping all the people using the Alteryx. If I can help it and I can uh, teaching and anyone information about the Alteryx, it's one big pleasure for me. And I have been working with the Alteryx server about 2 years ago, and when more uh, more insistence now, when I have been I started working on the data meaning, and I have a big pleasure to work here, and and get all the I have been learning much about the Alteryx server, and it's a big pleasure.
Yeah, and you can see you already have some fans even from our YouTube channel and stuff reaching out to say hi. So I definitely see a lot of love coming from all the different people. And Fernando, I know you've done quite a job in regards to sharing on the community, and I know all of us can be a little bit competitive in terms of answering questions, etc., right? So as we're kind of talking about this, if you guys have questions now, feel free to throw them in the chat. We're more than happy to answer some of those. And I can share, I mean, from my personal experience, I've been an ACE for, we're on 5 years now, which is incredible. It's been an incredible journey. And I've been working with Alteryx as well as other self-service analytics platforms for over 10 years now. So I feel like when we carry on these conversations, it's going to be incredible to see all the different things that we can discuss, and just the advice and stuff, and from the variety of different environments that we've seen. Both like on the customer side, from a sales perspective. Carlos, you've been working here at Data Meaning doing managed services for servers. It's just all, I think, really incredible, right? And then Talis, some of the acrobatics you've been doing with APIs and stuff lately is incredible. So let's kind of dive into some questions, and I'll throw this first one out for everybody. And it may feel like a curveball to kind of get started, but I really want us to just start diving in at this point so we can see what everyone's excited about. So there's probably a lot of individuals who are joining us here today that have a server environment. And as we kind of talk about this, how often should you upgrade your server environment? Like, what advice do you guys have around frequency, and then how long you should wait to do that after you first do your first installation?
So I can start here. So I like to talk. This depends on how much your customer is willing to use as new versions, and how many features will be made available to carry out these updates. And if your customer wants to be always up to date, we recommend to always stay 2 versions below the current one, and to have more stability in relations to bugs and to issues, what's happened. But it's depending on how eager your customer is with the new Alteryx feature. If we want, we can do when we have a new version, we can install this and use this. But they want to know we have some bugs to happen during this installation or during the use of the new versions.
Yeah, and I would add to Carlos' point is basically the amount of resources that you have to upgrade an environment. That also plays a big role here. And I think because an upgrade is a process that has risks, as any software installation, you do have risks because you're changing a lot of aspects in your build, right? In your Alteryx build. So you have to think about that, because if your company has resources available to do that, okay, that's fine. But sometimes you just don't have the bandwidth to do it, or you don't have the people to do it. So you have to make those upgrades less frequent than you would like, right? And you have to think what kind of value I'm getting when I'm upgrading the version, right? Am I getting, like Carlos said, am I getting new features? Am I getting like a more stable platform with less errors, less bugs? So I think all of that needs to play out together, and basically you have to balance all of those effects that you get from an upgrade.
Also, I think I'm a bit more aggressive than you and Carlos and Carlos. I would think that I would not upgrade to the newest release, but I think I would wait for the second release of the newest version. So I think Alteryx has been doing a great job dealing with bugs, and also the Alteryx support has been doing a great job helping us through all the bugs, through all the problems that we might encounter during that testing. Since Alteryx needs also a crowdsourcing of people testing the platform, so they would like us to also upgrade to the newest version and to help them develop more features, or to correct things that they have missed, something like that.
And we can even see John here with a question relating to upgrading every quarter. Typically, I like to do every 6 months in terms of an upgrade, and that's what we include like in our managed services packages as a default. And in part, that's not only just about the time it takes to upgrade the server, right? In terms of from an IT and an administrative perspective, but it's also for continuity for the users, because think of that being a disruption in terms of maybe some of your day-to-day activities, because at that point we're asking users to test their workflows, etc., to make sure that everything's working properly, and that also includes like Python and R package management, extra tools, etc. So I like us to be conscious as admins in regards to doing that. Now, there's obviously some exceptions to that, which would be one of my favorite times just passed around Inspire, right? We had a virtual Inspire, and there's lots of new features that are coming out that everyone's excited about. Kind of getting some of those features, if we can show the ROI and reason for upgrading more frequently, or even just maybe an off-cycle upgrade, then I think that's worthwhile. And as we kind of talk about that, I do like us to stay one minor version behind, just so if there are any bugs, etc., like Carlos had touched on, we just want to make sure that that gets worked out, especially when we're talking about enterprise clients, which as we're talking here today, we deal with clients that have thousands of users and hundreds of servers in their Alteryx server environments, all the way down to like commercial clients who literally just have a single node instance and maybe a handful of people on the server. So as we're kind of talking about that in particular, there's going to be some of those server resources that are best in class. What's some of the resources that we would all recommend people checking out on the community, or like from data meeting?
Yeah, I guess I think the community is always a really big resource, right? A big book of resources there. But I would say like with server, I would say like taking also the learning paths. At least if you're starting to do the server admin, that's also in the community, but that helps a lot to get a clarity of you know, like the how the server works and how you should manage some of the components. So there's a really good learning path out there in the community that specifically I think it's very useful for those who are starting with the platform.
Awesome.
Yeah, adding to that, I think, of course, the Alteryx Academy for those who have no idea what is really going on, as Thales mentioned. I think that the knowledge base as well. So if you have something that it's not working, or some bug, Alteryx tends to share that. So if you have a common question come to the Alteryx support, if it's some very common to a lot of people, Alteryx will post that in the knowledge base. But for me personally, I would recommend the Data Meaning YouTube channels. So I think we have a 5 hours, a 5-hour video training there, and it's for me it's been great. That's the best content that I have ever encountered. I don't see that in the Alteryx community, for instance.
Yeah, and it's incredible because I think we're actually going to be revising that content. I think it's going to be an annual thing because Alteryx Server just keeps evolving so fast, right? And as we talk about that, I know we've got a lot of new things. I'm hoping we just go back and revisit those existing videos, as well as offering some new ones. Like we'll probably be doing an API session as well, that we can populate more of that from. And I mean, we even have other aces that I'd love to see on the show. Like we've got Joshua joining us from Point Verde Beach. And then we even have Marcus from Brazil. Welcome, guys. Thank you for joining us. And then as we continue on, Carlos, do you have any good resources that you would recommend sharing?
So I have here on my favorites bookmarks here on my Google Chrome, and I like to take a look always the MongoDB backups and the best practices. I believe this is the good links to have this on hand, and in the favorites are somewhere easily accessible. After all, you never know when you need it.
Yeah, I mean, and what I'd recommend is we should throw some of those in the chat. So if you guys have some fun ones, let's share some of those links in the chat with everybody. We can get them out to everyone joining us from YouTube and LinkedIn. And feel free to connect with us if you have questions around specific ones. And Marcus has a great question around if you're a company that's only using Alteryx Designer, what advantages or needs can Alteryx Server fill? Does anyone want to take that one? All right.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's basically you open up a world of possibilities to collaborate, right? Your designer work. You also got the scheduling piece, of course, that not, I know that's, just not the main aspect, but if you do need to automate your workflows, server plays a big role out there as well. But I think of having server. It's basically taking Alteryx to the next level, right, in your company, and not even Alteryx, analytics to the next level. As you think, as how you can educate people as well, educate people in your organization, make them learn more about analytics, since you have an easy to use platform as server and the gallery, so you can start playing with that and making people getting there and run and share their stuff with each other. So that's what I would comment on that.
My favorite is definitely the apps, right? Because I think especially as aces, we get tasked with a lot of the like Mission Impossible type stuff, right? They're like, you're an ace, you know everything, you're gonna knock this out of the park. And as we kind of talk about that journey, I think one of the exciting pieces as we see that is there's only so much time in a given day, right? And if we start building these amazing things, we'll start getting more requests in regards to, hey, can you build this for me? And then can you run that workflow again for me that you did that was ad hoc results for COVID or different things, right? And as we start seeing some of that coming, then really what we'll notice is there's opportunities for those analytics apps. And then instead of someone knocking on your door and saying, hey, can you pull that data for me again because you have the Alteryx Designer license, now we can say, let's go ahead and take that from a maintenance perspective, and instead of just maintaining a workflow, we can turn it into an app, and now those individuals can self-serve. And when we talk about maintaining the server, I think that's an important piece of it, is looking from a usability perspective, how are we making sure that we're keeping that continuity going, both with like collections, right? And then there's been the recent changes to studios. We're seeing the change from them being able to be a shared private studio with a team to now it has to be set to an individual, right? And as we kind of talk about that, I think that's important to discuss, especially as there's different forms of authentication and stuff like Felipe's asking, and we'll get to that question here in a second about SSO integration with Okta. Did you guys have anything else to add in regards to going from designer and then like the advantages for server?
Sorry, Carlos, go on.
I believe the one another perspective to consider when we need to use the Alteryx Designer or Alteryx Server is that how many workflows you are working in your company, or how many workflows you need to share with the other teams or other departments inside your company. This is a good point to consider inside the use of the Alteryx server. And if you have the necessary to schedule some workflows, sometimes is better to buy one Alteryx server that to use the schedule than buy the other license, for example, to schedule using the Alteryx Designer.
Definitely.
Yeah, for me personally, I think that the strongest feature that Alteryx servers serves, I think it's the collaboration, right? But one thing that I might add is about the governance. So if you have a lot of Alteryx designers, a lot of developers working, how will I govern everything? How will I manage everything? For instance, if a user leaves the company, what happens with all the workflows that is in a particular folder of his? So that's something that Alteryx server can resolve for you.
Awesome. And then we have Felipe asking about integration, right? So I think part of it, you're hearing a lot about collaboration and governance, and a good chunk of this obviously starts with authentication. And Alteryx has a lot of different ways that it can integrate and integration partners in terms of authentication. Okta is one of them. So you can do the integration with Okta. When we kind of talk about this, let's discuss some of the opportunities there are to make this as smooth as possible. And I think particularly when we're talking about SSO and setting this up on the server, let's start very basic. And if you're setting up your server and you're looking at the authentication methods, this is probably the biggest thing. If you're setting this up independently and aren't having a partner or Alteryx help you set it up, you only get one shot to set up the authentication, because what that does when you initiate the Alteryx services is it creates the MongoDB instance and sets that up relative to the authentication type. And Alteryx only allows for one authentication type at a time. So it doesn't have multiple authentication types that you can integrate at the same time. So I want everybody to be conscious of that as you're looking at setting up your server. And then as we kind of talk about the integration with Okta, make sure you're checking with your server admin, as well as at that point your authentication admins around different you need the different endpoints that you're going to need to connect to. Make sure that you're also focusing on the case sensitivity. There's some amazing articles that are out there on the Alteryx community, which they do a good job of keeping up to date around authentication methods and how you go about setting those up. I recommend sending those to your admins relating to authentication so they can kind of follow along, because there's going to be some setup in terms of like first name, last name, and then also user IDs that you'll need to get set up. And then the other big shout out in that regard is SSL certificates. So please make sure you get those from a certificate authority, and that's set up on your server, because whenever you go to do your first test for setting those up, that needs to come up as part of the authentication, because otherwise it's going to say, hey, you're trying to authenticate from a source that's not secure, and we don't allow that. You'll see that happening with a lot of first-time admins trying to work through the setup. And then the big call out that I would have with this is once it's set up, then you don't really have to go back and revisit this unless you're trying to change authentication methods, which usually requires some heavy rework on the admin side as well as the users in regards to partnership. And then I see Joshua again doing a quick shout out in regards to APIs. So if you guys are interested in talking about APIs, we're going to do a whole segment on Friday just dedicated to the API portion of the server. That honestly is another piece that I'm really excited about, and Alteryx is continuing to grow that out and morph it. I hope they bring everything from Analytics Hub, because it was over 250 endpoints, and that really just provided some maximum flexibility for us as admins as well as users to really dive in and utilize the server, not just from a scheduling perspective, but also from day-to-day admin activities perspective. And Felipe did ask in regards to setting up the server, are there any pre-requirements for server installation? What are some of the big ones that you guys would want to mention here in regards to pre-requirements?
Well, the first one, I would say the license key. Right?
Always the license key. It's the most important.
No, but I think especially in terms of getting your environment cleaned up for the installation. I mean, there's some of the things that you can do in advance to avoid problems when installing the tool and configuring the tool. Of course, the installation runs really smoothly, right? It's just executing a file, but then you have to configure the instance to stand up the Alteryx service. So that's where the problems I think start to show up a little bit. And there are some ports that you need open prior to the installation. Usually, when if you're thinking of your gallery, you think if you're using HTTP or HTTPS, depending, you'd have port 80 or 443 open. You also need to make sure disk space, you have enough disk space to install the platform, and also to store the MongoDB instance if you're using an embedded instance. Authentication, like Andrew said, you need to pick one prior the installation, because you can change it after you configure. These are a few of them. I hand it over to the other to you guys to continue the list here. But I mean, yeah, there are a few of them.
And a quick quiz: who knows what's the port for MongoDB instances embedded? Who's got that memorized?
27018, right?
Yep. All right, Dallas, you get the rest of the day off, man. We're good.
That's internal one, yeah, right. And that's not out. That's inbound, not outbound. That's another thing you should know. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's a big call out too. So if you're looking to get further in regards to Alteryx Server and taking your skills to the next level, please just focus on reading the MongoDB first. Don't do any writing. We need like a huge disclaimer on the bottom of the screen right now. Don't do any writing to the MongoDB when you're first playing with it. But I definitely recommend checking out the read to get comfortable with it. And that's another way to kind of take your admin skills to the next level. And there's even a MongoDB tool in Designer, right? So you can kind of do the extraction from there. Yeah, thank you, Alan, for calling that out. Don't write anything to MongoDB when you're first starting.
Never.
Never.
Never, ever.
And so when we're going through this, we got a question from Sydney. Is it possible to do data visualization in Alteryx, or do you need an extra tool to visualize data exploration? Does anyone want to take that one, or I've got this one. This is actually a huge passion point for me. I'll take it.
Yeah,
so,
go ahead.
I actually started, when I first started my journey with Alteryx, I started with Tableau as well. So when we talk about visualization tools, Alteryx can do light visualization, right? And as we talk about this, I think it's very good at doing batch reporting and then static delivery of reporting in regards to those components. But when we talk about what should we do with those particular types of insights, don't just think of Alteryx being an ETL tool, because it is extremely good at helping you visualize and explore your data. And that's where I think Alteryx is actually faster than using visualization tools, especially now. There were literal tiers when they launched the interactive results grid, which allows you to go in and explore and apply different tools to the grid, and then apply those back to the canvas. And that's continuing to grow and progress. And as we talk about its integration with visualization tools, it has a very tight integration with Tableau, with Salesforce, Click, you name the visualization tool, Power BI, you can integrate with a lot of those. And the recommendation there is that actually helps separate out, just like you see with MPP platforms, the compute and the storage, right? Imagine the transformations being separated out from the visualization. If you try and do this all within Tableau, then it's not that you can't do it, but it doesn't create the best user experience. So what I like to do is kind of pair those together, like peanut butter and jelly, or you can integrate Snowflake in there, and then now you've got the salt stack, right, with some Salt Bay going on, and you can get those integrated together, and that really allows you to kind of take your insights to the next level, and provide them in a means that are both going directly to your internal clients. And that could be, hey, self-service via an analytics app. It could be an email distribution. Hey, there's something that you should pay attention to here, that's either an opportunity or a risk. And then we can highlight that. And then if people need to dig in deeper before they act on those insights, then they can use the visualization, and you can shoot them an email with a link of the visualization. But to start, they have maybe a simple bar graph or a trend line, right, that they can see and highlight why they need to be concerned. And it prevents them from being overwhelmed by the amount of visualizations and stuff, as opposed to them spending all day like in a visualization tool and then trying to dig for things every day. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, and Andrew, we always we know that we also have insights, right?
Yes.
On the server, right? I know that it's not very frequently used, but it's part of the product, and we can also, if you're doing light things with like simple charts, and you want to share them in server, in collections, or in studios, you can also share insights, create them in Alteryx and share them in server. So this is a feature that is not really used because clients usually have a a tool for a specific tool for data visualization, but it's there in the server, and you can make use of it.
Yeah, what uses have you guys seen for insights? Do you have any favorite use cases that you've seen for utilizing those?
Well, I guess in my opinion, it's just more of like simple reports, right? That you want to keep in the platform. So the good thing about having those insights integrated there, it's just because it's all inside of Alteryx, right? You don't need
Exactly.
any other thing to use. And also, if you don't want to use insights, you can always use the regular outputs to report formats, right? So when you're running a workflow or you're running an app, you can output to what we call PCXML extension that will provide you a report on the server.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think we all neglect the reporting tools a little bit because we take them for granted, right? We're so used to all these new fancy visuals, and sometimes it's just the quick and dirty that can really get the job done. And I actually love insights for, in particular, for data quality work, because we're normally in Alteryx all day, right? And even though I do interact with the Tableau server and I go there more for sharing some of the reporting, et cetera, for those who aren't heavy Alteryx users. But from a data quality perspective, I just want to be able to highlight internally, hey, do I need to go back and look at my workflow or communicate with maybe the data source owner, who we should also be thinking as our internal client? Are there some needs or some areas of focus that we need to take the opportunity to improve? And we can do that very quickly, as Thales is highlighting, and that's something that we would be able 1 or 2 clicks away from every day, and can provide those insights. Nice. And as we're kind of diving in a little further here, I mean, some of those other questions that we commonly have are around managing like the different data sources on the server. What are some of the ways that you see connecting to data sources that differ from how you may be connecting from Alteryx Designer by itself, if that's all you had?
Well, you're talking about the data. When you talk about sharing connections, actually, Alteryx Server has a really nice feature of the data connection manager, right? Where
Yes.
you can share, you can create the connections, all that work that you have using Designer to create the connections, create the alias, pass the string, the connection string, pass your credentials and stuff. The server admin or whoever is managing the server can create that connection information and share with other users in the company. So they can make use of that. They don't want to do anything customer side. They just need to have the driver and that respective version of the driver installed in their machines, and they can start running. So that helps a lot, even for the company to standardize and even like be aware of what people are accessing. So that gives also that layer of data security, if you think about it, because then you can track what people are doing with Designer, what people are accessing, what kind of data they're accessing, and that's very useful.
Yeah, and as we talk about that, Carlos, what types of industries do we see that are really comfortable with this from a security perspective? Can you name some of the ones that we've kind of worked with or you've worked with specifically?
The types of company, I believe the pharmaceuticals and financials it's other type of companies, and mobile phone, the big companies here in Brazil or around the world, need to be this security.
Yeah, we even have like healthcare, right?
Healthcare and
the list is just too exhaustive, right, Carlos?
Yeah.
As you kind of look at this, there's a lot of different
yes.
clients.
I believe all the companies need to be this knowledge about the security for all informations inside the Alteryx server, and it's applicable on all other companies.
Yeah, and as we kind of talk about some different security aspects, another one is like, how do you deal with this one's coming from Tom from Idaho, and he was asking, how do you deal with users that have left the company? So if a user leaves the company and maybe they had some Okta authentication, how do we go about making sure that they're, well, I guess let's start basic. What happens to their workflows? Not everybody on the call may even know what happens to them.
In case the users leave the company, the recommendation is to transfer this user to a shared studio and get all the workflows and share it to another person inside your company. And it is also important to be aware of the workflows that may have been scheduled by him. If you disable this user, the schedule will be disabled also as well, and this can cause some problems. It is always good to read the schedules whenever possible when the user leaves the company. This is the first information about the user leaving.
Yeah, I think we have. Sorry. Go on, Thales.
Go ahead, Fernando. Go ahead.
Okay, so I think we have maybe two options here. And if we have a single user studio with only one user in it, and this studio is leaving the company, if you have a brand new user that will go and start working with those workflows, you can simply insert that user in that studio, and that will work as it should. So, but if you have a multiple user studio, you have, I think you can share the schedules, and everything will work as it should as well. So everyone in the studio will see all the schedules, all the workflows, and it can run and admin as they want. And one another thing, I think it's related to APIs. So we can migrate the workflows from one environment to another, and that there is an API request for that. But you can also use that to migrate workflows from one studio to another. Of course, the schedules you will need to rebuild everything, but at least the workflows, you have a lot of them. You will be able to transfer from one studio to another one.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna mention, Fernando. It's the API usage, as you have like really simple calls to download workflows, even if you're an admin or if you're a user as well. So, but for administration purposes, I think it's really important to back up the workflows in the company, and the APIs can do that easily for you.
Yeah, I think you may think that APIs are too hard to use. Alteryx have some documentation about that, but one thing that I would like to mention is that Alteryx has built one workflow to do that migration. So if you go to the community or Google and press Alteryx migrating workflows, you have one workflow that already do that. So that's an example of the knowledge base that Alteryx constantly produces to the community.
And I think there's like 3 or 4 of them out there now, and a lot of those are from a variety of ACEs. And as we kind of talk about those, even if you've got your own flair or spin on it, right, a lot of these are macros that have been built out. So if you wanted to peek under the hood and see how others are doing it or how an expert is doing it, right, you can crack those macros open and take a look and understand that. And that's something that I always advise for people to kind of take a look at. Alteryx Connect loaders, those are actually my favorite because it is literally parsing up all the workflows to load the metadata into Connect. And whenever you open those up, you can see how it's being pulled from the Alteryx server and being broken down. And just the first time I saw those, it was like mind blown. It was incredible. All the different things that you could kind of do and see from those. And as we kind of talk about macros, Raphael has a great question around third-party macros, and are there any limitations on using them on server? So we obviously always have to pay homage to everybody that helped create all of the crew macros. So a shout out to Adam Riley, to Mark Frisch, as well as the rest of the gang for really deploying some of those macros. Joe Mako, thank you all for all the groundwork that you guys laid in regards to setting up some of the most awesome third-party macros that exist in the community today. As we talk about those, a lot of the limitations surrounding that are really around upgrades that you want to be conscious of from a maintenance perspective. So as we talk about doing upgrades, you just want to be aware of what Python versions they're using, if they're Python dependent, if they have SDK integrations or drivers, right? And as we kind of talk about those integrations, it could be on both sides of the coin, right? So talk about macros. If those macros, you not only have to be conscious of what's happening on the Alteryx side, but also on whatever that connecting data source side is. So if you do an upgrade on that connecting environment, you need to make sure, I'll give you an example, like we built MicroStrategy connectors in Alteryx, and there were some dependencies that related to the R version as a MicroStrategy version, because there's been some changes to dossiers, etc., that are involved there that you have to make sure you're conscious of, and that's part of why we recommend only upgrading every 6 months or so.
Yeah, and another thing I was gonna add, Andrew, is when you're a regular designer user and you're publishing workflows that use third-party macros, I would really recommend you to stay in touch with your server admin or whoever's behind the server machine. And that's due to many reasons. One of them is, for example, maybe your macro is using something that is not allowed in the server machine, right? And that includes like run command tools, Python tools. We know that server has a safe mode where blocks basically all of these tools. So this could be something that wouldn't work as well. And also, I think basically it's good to talk to the server admin so maybe he can install these tools and make it available without you having to back them every time you publish a workflow with them. So if you're publishing workflow that has macros on it, if you don't publish them correctly, that meaning like packaging as an asset, or maybe publishing them and Alteryx in the server machine has version in the same location installed for that macro, your workflow will fail basically, right? So this needs to be discussed with the server admin. This needs to be a closed discussion. See if this could benefit other people in the company or in the department as well.
Yeah, they're going to be handcuffed at that point, right? Because they have no idea what's going on. And then Talis, you got this amazing board behind you, and Carlos does too. Are you guys going to have like a Twister show off where you're going to show us all the tools that all the users need to be conscious of whenever they're uploading their workflows?
Oh, mine is too far away from me, I think. So I don't think I can, but I can do that. But yeah, actually, they're not really close to each other. Run command tool is one of them that is right there, the 78. And I think this chart might be a little outdated because I can't see the Python tool, for example, here. But I think the Python tool came in like in version 2018 or 19, right? So I'm not seeing it here. I know that the R tool might be somewhere. Oh, right there, 63. Yeah, 63.
Yeah.
It's right in the middle. The R tool
And
is one
some
of
of
them.
them are like even on the backside. Like I'm old school. I got it hanging out here, a little menu, right?
That's the predictive ones, right? Yeah, the
Yeah.
predictive ones. Yeah.
Yeah, we got front and back. This is like legacy wear. I should have gotten it signed and everything because this is from oh my goodness, I think 2017, 2018. We had this. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, the predictive tools also use the R tool, so they might not work in the safe mode too. So
yeah.
yeah.
And as we're kind of talking about this, what are some of the other things that you guys would love to share with our followers as well as the community? What are some of those topics that you guys have in mind for discussing here on LinkedIn Live?
Mm.
I know we had talked a little bit about APIs, maybe getting started with Python SDK. I've got some more salt stuff that I would love to share with the community. So if you're hearing any of these and you would love to hear more on it, please just post it in the chat, and we'll make sure that we get that on the calendar for you guys.
Yeah,
Carlos?
I believe the topic of the moment, it's the API. I and Thales are using this very much in the some clients here in the data meaning. And the best way is it's doing one download all the workflows inside the Alteryx gallery, for example, using the only one workflow to run and get it between Alteryx Designer. And this workflow we can do one download all these workflows published there. And it's I believe this is a great topic to discuss here.
Nice.
Yeah, and yeah, I think best practices, and what I see a lot of people, struggling with is the production process, which is something that I mentioned. For example, if I'm publishing workflow with a macro, what will happen in the server, right? Or if I publish a workflow with a connection, what do I need to have so that workflow won't fail? So basically, parity between designer and server is something that is really discussed among the users. Right?
Or get all other informations about how many users we have inside the using the Alteryx gallery, and who is this guys, and how many peoples, how many collections, or how many data connection we have created. Instead, we get one by one. We can use the API tools to get all this information at the same time.
Exactly. And the other area that those kind of come from is the Mongo instance, right? And when we talk about that, Joshua Burkow mentioned version control of workflows, right? So as we talk about different ways to manage Alteryx instances, we didn't even get into multi-node instances. We ran out of time today. And as we kind of talk about maintaining those different environments, you have version control, and we work with a variety of companies doing version control from like a single node instance, right? Where, hey, there's version control that exists in Alteryx. And then you have other environments where we've got Bitbucket, GitHub, Jenkins, et cetera, involved, Azure DevOps, in terms of managing those code repositories. Because remember, the Alteryx workflows are XML under the skin, and so you can do some parsing and some maintenance from a code perspective in that manner. So there's lots that I think we can dive into. And as we wrap up today, there's a couple of really important notes that I want to share. There's a lot that you've heard from this team today. If you would like to join us, we have amazing openings. We've got lots of people that we're hiring right now, and that includes obviously Alteryx Server individuals, developers, solution architects. A hot one right now is we have so many projects going on. We're looking for a delivery manager as well as a BA. So if you have some components that you would like to touch on, we're going to be visiting those different topics and the different ways that we interact. And if you've got those mad skills, we would love to have you on as a guest speaker or as an employee, right? So you can DM any of us directly on LinkedIn or email us, and then we can get you in touch with our HR department and then talk about the opportunities that exist here at Data Meaning. And when we discuss different aspects, obviously when we're talking about Alteryx, there's a lot of certifications that exist out there. We'll be discussing how to get some of those skills here on LinkedIn Live, and some different tips and tricks that we have there. But we do love to see people with certifications, so we'll just continue to help get you ramped up. And what's Alteryx's theme this year, that be brilliant, be breakthrough, right? So we'll help you achieve that for free here. All you got to do is follow us here on LinkedIn Live and on YouTube, and we'll be happy to share some of those tips and tricks with you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we can't wait to see you tomorrow.
Thank you, guys.
Everyone.
Have a great day.
Have a great day for everyone. Bye.